We thought that Kanchenjunga and Makalu were tough treks, but little did we know the toughest was yet to come. The Dhaulagiri Base Camp trek, or Dhaulagiri Circuit as it's often known, is a really good way to challenge yourself if you want a challenge. Hi, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Emma.
From Project Base8000. Our goal is to trek to the base camps of all the world's 14 highest mountains over 8,000 metres. After 2.5 years of lockdowns and border closures due to the COVID pandemic, we were free once again to resume our project. We arrived in Kathmandu with smiles on our faces, and the local Nepalese were also happy to see us return. In Kathmandu, before we start our treks, we always like to go to the Buddhanath Stupa and spit in the prayer wheels for good luck. After flying from Kathmandu to Pokhara, we stayed the night and then drove the next day for 5 hours via Beni to the trailhead at Darbang, ready to start our trek. The approach up to Dhaulagiri Base Camp started by trekking at lower altitudes through villages, fields of crops and forests. It was very hot and sweaty for the first 4 or 5 days. The trekking crew are one of the keys to a successful and enjoyable trek. We were so thankful for the excellent guiding, delicious food, beautifully selected campsites, strong porters and all-round friendliness. After trekking through Muri and Bogara, we reached Darbang. We loved the little tea houses that we camped by on this trek. There weren't many compared with other treks we've been on, but it was nice to meet a few locals. If you're in the area, then look out for the Project Base8000 sticker on one of the tea houses. So tomorrow we're heading from Darbang for about 2,520 metres, although I've got 2,469 on my watch, up to Dhaulagiri, which we can't see on the map. We assume it's somewhere around here, and then the next day we go to Italian base camp and have our acclimatisation there in a couple of days, which will be Anzac Day. That's at 3660, and then from there to Dhaulagiri Base Camp, which is 4748, which is really our destination. And after that we're going to cross the French Pass at 5,360 metres and then it's a hidden valley, and then all the way down, all the way back to Marfa, Johnson. We fly out of Johnson.
So you having fun?
Oh yes. Challenging. It's very hot and humid, but now it's cooled off, so I think we're going to be rugging up from here on in. After experiencing hot and humid conditions of the previous days, it was nice to finally reach the cooler elevations and lovely campsite at the Dhaulagiri Base Camp. This was our first experience of seeing Dhaulagiri up close, as its west face towered right above us. Truly an imposing and impressive sight. We love imagining the many expeditions from the past that attempted to find a way to the summit. The Italian base camp, however, was not our target destination. We would be trekking further to the base camp used by today's climbers to climb the northeast route. Here we are at the Italian base camp, 3,660 metres. And here's the lovely Emma helping up the Sherpas putting up our tents. While I take a video, very nice. Here's our campsite. Overnight we heard a few rock falls, and the next morning we saw an avalanche tumble down the face of Dhaulagiri. We had a rest day here to help us acclimatise to the altitude. Of course, a rest day still involves hiking up the nearest hill to reach a higher altitude than our camp. Our guides also gave us a demo of the use of a portable altitude chamber, or gamma bag, that is often carried by trekking companies on high altitude treks. This can be used in emergencies to alleviate the symptoms of severe altitude sickness and buy time before an evacuation can be arranged. Luckily, it wasn't needed on our trek. From Italian base camp, we descended onto the glacier and through the Chonbaden Gorge. Our guides had done a recce the day before to check the trail, which they had not been on for 2.5 years due to COVID. They discovered that some of it had been washed out, so we had some tricky navigating to do and a steep rocky cliff to scramble up. For safety, we donned our climbing helmets and the guides fixed some ropes to help us get to the top. Little did we know that this was just the start of our challenging adventure. At Glacier Camp, at around 4,200 metres, we encountered snow for the first time on the trek. Reaching Dhaulagiri Base Camp was a very poignant moment for us. After all, this was our 7th base camp on our journey to trek to the base camps of all the world's 14 highest mountains over 8,000 metres. Halfway, yes! Dhaulagiri is also the 7th highest mountain in the world at 8,167 metres. We love meeting climbers at the base camps we trek to and hearing their stories. Our fascination with base camps of the 8000ers comes from reading stories about historical expeditions or knowing mountaineers who have climbed these mountains before. This time we were extra lucky to meet a friend of ours who was climbing Dhaulagiri and who had just arrived back in base camp after completing their acclimatisation on the mountain. We could see the route up the Little Eiger face to Camp 1 and around the corner on the way up to the summit. Leaving base camp after a couple of days, we headed further up the glacier and then up and along a ridge to reach our first 5,000 metre challenge, the French Col. Up here we saw some huge vultures or lammergeiers flying around us. They have wingspans between 2 to 3 metres, and luckily for us they didn't want us for breakfast. On a clear day you can see surrounding mountains towering above. Not on this day though. We had snow, cloud and strong winds to contend with. Fluttering prayer flags mark the top of the col. We also discovered a few memorials for climbers who had lost their lives while climbing Dhaulagiri in previous years. From our campsite at Hidden Valley, we had magnificent views up the valley to a mountain called Chura, just shy of 7,000 metres. After a rest day, we set off the next morning to cross the Dampers Pass, just over 5,000 metres. Little did we know that the biggest challenge was yet to come. The route had lots of snow, more than usual at this time of year. There were many steep and exposed sections on the long traverse across the pass. For safety, we used the climbing gear that we'd brought with us: helmet, crampons and ice axe. As the sun started to set, we were above the clouds and we got a glimpse of the magical view that mountaineers must experience. This was truly a beautiful place. However, we realised that we were still at 5,000 metres and had another 1,000 metres or so to descend to our campsite at Dhaulagiri. How many more hours did we have to go? Well, we stopped briefly to refuel, put on another layer of clothing, and to switch on our head torches. After we descended for hours in the dark, we were so grateful to some of the trekking crew who came up to meet us with some hot juice and noodle soup. Walking, or more like crawling into camp at around 11:30 p.m. that night was challenging to say the least. We had been trekking for 16 hours. We collapsed into our tents and slept well that night. Waking up to a lovely sunny morning and having a relaxing outdoor breakfast restored our energy for the final leg of our trek. So off we set, yet another 1,000 metres downhill, to the lovely village of Marfa, which is famous for its apple orchards. It was then a short bus ride to the town of Johnson and to our lodge for the night. It was here we said our final thanks and goodbyes to the porters and kitchen crew, who produced a large cake to celebrate the end of an amazing trek. The next day we flew back to Pokhara and then to Kathmandu. If you want to learn more about our project and the 14 highest mountains in the world, go to our website, projectbase8000.com. Onwards and upwards.